Ladies and gentlemen, friends, it's a great privilege to take part in this conference, this event, and I want to congratulate Shanar and other organizers for producing something that is so educationally enlightening and politically mobilizing. And I think that combination of knowledge and action is crucial for those of us that really believe in the political vitality necessary to carry on the struggle for the right to freedom of expression. Let me just make a couple of comments about the pictorial presentation of this problem of academic freedom that has emerged in the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks in the United States, and particularly in relation to the Israel-Palestine conflict. And what is really at stake is the importance of protecting critical thinking on controversial questions. And the particular problem in a liberal society such as the United States is that the right of freedom of expression is uniformly affirmed, but its existential implementation is very contested as soon as it touches these very sensitive issues that I referred to. And what is important to understand is if you really want to protect the right of free expression in the United States, you need to think about the supportive culture and climate of free expression. The Churchill case beautifully illustrates that he is being punished for what he said, but the actual procedure of punishment takes a path that doesn't challenge his right to have said what he did about little Eichmanns in the World Trade Center. So in other words, the use of a procedure questioning his academic stature was substituted for the real challenge to his controversial views, and that enabled the political process within the university to actually impose the maximum penalty, which is to deprive him of his academic position despite having tenure. And what I think is also important to understand in the background here is that protecting the university as an arena of critical thought is especially important in the United States, because the so-called free, constitutionally protected and free media is a casualty of what might be called self-censorship, or what Noam Chomsky has referred to as indoctrination in a liberal society. In other words, it is a circumstance where if the university is deprived of its role of critical thinking, the public has very little exposure to the kind of oppositional ideas and alternative paths to peace and justice that are at odds with official policy. And there is another important thing to understand, I think, about the media, and that it is not consistently opposed. Its posture is one of leaning far to the right when it comes to its receptivity to controversial views. You probably have heard about the rise of the Tea Party, an extreme right constellation of forces in the United States, which enjoys incredible media attention from the mainstream and from the most respected print and TV media, including the New York Times, CNN, and at the same time, people on the even moderate left have no access to these same sources for disseminating ideas. So it's a sophisticated form of self-censorship that is very tolerant and sympathetic even to what the far right has to offer, and closes out almost totally views from more progressive perspectives. And you see the same thing, perhaps in an even more pronounced fashion, in relation to the Israel-Palestine conflict, where those that are the most extreme advocates of an unconditionally supportive view of Israel have almost unrestricted access to the op-ed pages and to the TV commentary. This is also true for the discredited neoconservatives in the United States. Individuals like Richard Pearl, for instance, are frequent guests of the most widely viewed news programs, where someone like Noam Chomsky is never invited. So you have that kind of discriminatory liberalism that purports to be open to all views, but in actuality is extremely biased and prevents the kind of debate that a constitutional society requires and needs. Let me just say a further word about the cases of Bill Robinson and John Yoo. The Bill Robinson case is important because it shows that when an appeal is made outside the university, pressure groups can activate a suppressive kind of civil society initiative. In this case, the Anti-Defamation League threatened the university with withholding donations, voluntary contributions to university efforts to raise money, unless they did something to punish Bill Robinson for distributing these photographs of the abuses taking place in Gaza. And the university capitulated at the first instance by initiating an improper public investigation that gave the case wide publicity and meant that however it came out, this individual would be stigmatized in the American atmosphere as anti-Zionist, anti-Israeli, and prevented from probably having access to other forms of employment at other universities. In other words, hurt his professional career. But here again, as unfortunate as it is for him as an individual, he's okay. He has tenure at the University of California, Santa Barbara. But what it does is to create an atmosphere of intimidation toward especially younger faculty who become scared of the consequences of engaging in any kind of criticism of Israel that will be viewed as the basis for assessing their future within the university. And since most decisions in the university are made by secret committee sessions that don't have to justify their outcomes, they can reflect this atmosphere of intimidation through unaccountable decision processes. And Norman Finkelstein, a well-known professor from the University of DePaul and a very ardent critic of Israeli policies, was recommended for tenure by his own department but turned down by the president of the university. And he had an admirable scholarly record. There was no professional basis. But since these decisions are non-reviewable, he was dismissed. My point here is, if one's interested in preserving an atmosphere of critical thinking within the American university structure, one has to do more than protect the formal right of free expression. One has to create and protect the climate within which that free expression occurs and create an atmosphere of non-intimidation with respect to controversial issues of the sort that these two sets of cases represent. Finally, a word about John Yoo, who served in the Bush administration as an extraordinarily visible apologist for policies that were widely viewed as violating the minimum understanding of torture. He was an advocate of torture in his professional role. And this raises, in a sense, the reverse question. Does the right of free expression insulate an individual like this from accountability when he returns to the university to teach future law students and represents a model of such deep immorality and even criminality as to make his role as a faculty member very lacking any kind of integrity and credibility. But the point here is that, again, the political culture protects John Yoo where it punishes Ward Churchill. And it's that imbalance that is causing what many of us feel is a real crisis of academic freedom in the United States at a time when the university setting is the most important arena of critical thought on these sensitive issues, and where whatever vitality American constitutional democracy possesses, it's not in Washington. It's in the rest of the society, and it depends on the activism of civil society and the role of intellectual leadership stemming from the university. Thank you very much.